This is Political Core, the non-PC edition of The Aaron Cruz Show, where you decide the topics. The only place where you get the news you want from the people you trust. We are your balanced and accurate information resource.
Good evening and welcome to the Aaron Cruz Show. This is Political Core. I'm your hostess, Aaron Cruz. Thank you for joining me. So, tonight's show, it's always a difficult topic that we're talking about. It's not an easy time here in America. Tonight's show is MSM's all-out war on taxpayers. You got that right. MSM is at war with the taxpayers. And you might be wondering why I came to that conclusion or how I came to that conclusion. Well, for me, it's clear. I have been reading as much as I can about the different tax bills, what's been going on. I'm a sentinel with Heritage Action, as hopefully all of you should be joining as well and getting involved. But it's difficult. You know, you go online, you see an article, and I would say that 80% that are from the MSM are negative. And they're not negative in terms of, well, let's just say, well, they're negative in all terms, if you want to really admit the truth. And they are there to basically pass propaganda. The substantial information that's provided is wishy-washy. The sources they use are jaded. Jaded meaning they don't name sources, okay? They get big-name people who don't want to say who they are out of risk. Risk, yes? But they can get people to put their entire lives on the line for certain things, right? This is tax reform that we're talking about right now, okay? More food on our tables. More food to go back in the economy. You would think, because politics are people, politicians are people, media are people, okay? You would think that these same people in the media, politicians, would be wanting to make sure that we have more food on our table, right? More money in our pockets. But this is the strangest part of it. There's a clear agenda. If you want to look at each one of the articles you pull up, there's a clear agenda that this isn't really about tax reform. This is about propaganda, pushing an agenda. The agenda is bigger than this year's idea of tax reform and Trump's wanting to push that through before Thanksgiving. The agenda is do anything, accomplish anything. To do so, you have to do so no matter what, by any means possible. Yes, they will go to any length possible to make Trump look bad, to make Republicans look bad. And it's not just even Republicans, it's anybody who does not align with the specific agenda. And the agenda would be not spread the wealth. If you're going to spread the wealth, if you're going to go to the means and end of everything and fulfill their agenda, communism. That's basically where it's at. And nobody wants to call it that. Nobody wants to call it that. Nobody wants to call it that. They want to call it progressivism. They want to call it socialism. They want to call it... Really, the goal here is full-fledged communism. It really is. And I have to say that I'm deeply disappointed. Now, Ted Cruz came out today and he said something prolific. I posted it on my Twitter page. Basically, he said that tax reform needs to happen. And taxpayers need more money in their pocket. That's basically what he said, which is what you and I have said for I don't know how long. And the question is, it's not just about health reform or tax reform or getting, simplified tax brackets and processes and policy and other things passed. It's not just about that. It's about the fact that Congress, okay, isn't doing their job, which is serving the American people, which is making sure that we have what we need in this country in terms of infrastructure and policy and processes, that we run efficiently. Their overreach is vast. And so when we look at, say, healthcare reform, we are also not getting anything in terms of work and jobs being done in Congress. Why? Because it doesn't meet the agenda. What's going on right now is just a bunch of busyness, okay? What we're seeing right now is a bunch of busyness, and it's meant to distract and detract. It's meant to confuse. It's also to be misleading. And in any way, if it can discredit, demean, or diminish somebody's reputation and put these people, these groups who are agenda driven, okay, more forward and advance them, let's do it, whatever the cost. And we see that unfortunately unfolding in times like the shooting that happened in Texas. And when we talk about this, I want to say it with the most sensitive heart in mind. There are many people who have died and families who've been affected forever. Okay, Americans are weeping and mourning over the loss of fellow citizens, and it's sad, but we have to look at the facts. We have to look at reality. The mainstream media pushed agenda again. Okay, it wasn't just, lone wolf shooter. It went further than that. Without saying he was white, they said he was white. But then the initial reports, interestingly, follow a pattern. They follow the pattern of the Vegas shooter. They follow the pattern of many other tragedies that have happened nationwide in the last year and a half. And even further if we want to really look at it. And the trend is this. Let's, as a group, so I cut out, sorry about that. So let's, as a group, push an agenda. And so what the mainstream media has done, and we saw this in spades with Clock Boy, all right? If you remember Clock Boy, Obama's prize suitcase, Clock Boy. The idea there was a test run. It was a major coming together of media, and how far and how quick and how vast could they pass the story around. That boy was pretty much on major media news outlets 48 hours. Gone. I mean, the story took off. And the interesting part is, and things have changed a little bit, but you would see AP's story regurgitated. And I believe that was a very good test play of what we're seeing now with, say, the Vegas shooter, and we're seeing with the unfortunate tragedy that's happened in Texas, is this push, this major push to get out an initial story. Let's get out that initial story and push. When the facts come out, okay, the people who are at work, who are immediately traumatized, because this is what they're doing. They're using the initial impact of the story, okay? You're a human. No matter how desensitized you are still human. The impact of that story hits you. It beats to your core, and you retain the information. Now, every subsequent story after that is just noise. What made impact were those initial reports. And now you and me and other individuals who really want to know the truth, really would like to understand what happened, and so we can better the nation, so we can lift each other up, so we can get the truth out there about what happened. We look at things objectively. These individuals, unfortunately, who are putting this information out there are banking on the majority of people not doing this. That they're banking that if they put their story out at midnight, by morning time, there's a new something on the horizon. And as we've seen, there are many other things that are going on right now across the nation that are diluting, or shall I say, just adding to that background noise. So when we have the information come in from the shooter, okay, from Texas, we remember that initial story. Everything else is just kind of there. And I know I'm repeating myself. I do this a lot, and I do it in my book, Revolution America, and I'm hoping you pick that up. It'll be in stores on December 15th. It's kind of an exciting time. It'll give you tools to help fight this propaganda war that we're in today. But in any case, let's get back to the point. And the point is this, okay? The noise. They're going to make as much noise, get on to the next subject as quick as they can. And that's tactical. So what can you do? What can you do in terms of the shooter? How can you communicate this to your families about the different new things that have come up? You know, tax reform, healthcare reform. All of those same tactics are being used across the board. They're being used. They're essentially, when somebody comes out and says something, be it McConnell, McCain, doesn't matter, Ted Cruz, whoever it might be, okay, they come out with the information and the initial reports are made. The rest is noise. Doesn't matter what comes after that. So if they can get an in to slam whoever, whatever, however, to further their agenda and shove it through, they will. And what I would suggest would be, okay, is to learn how to identify the lies, the deceit, and the other misleading things which are said within the news outlets. Now, I'm not suggesting that we all watch CNN. Many of us are boycotting different networks for different reasons. Clicks make money. I get that. Certain individuals are on these networks because they need to reach the masses. We have to reach the people somehow. So that's good that we have conservative voices on there, because then they can reach, maybe say, traditional Democrats who don't fit necessarily within the progressive, communist, socialist party or wing of the Democrat Party. So hopefully we can sway those opinions more centrist, which would be good. But most of us are let's get back to that, boycotting many of these networks. What can we do? We can support conservative media. We have Conservative Review. We have Independent Review Journal. We have OANN. Okay, we have Jewel TV. Okay, we have many different conservative news outlets and information sources that we can use and resource. We have, I mean, you know them. And if you don't know them, I'll list some of them in the comments for your reference. But it's important that we support the right people. We lift up our own groups, but we can't stay blind to the truth. And the truth is, a vast amount of population within our nation are receiving that tragedy, impact, information, which imprints, and then a bunch of noise, which they never seem to let set in. And that's what we're combating when we talk day to day with ordinary people. So if you're just joining us, this is Political Core. I'm Erin Cruz. We are talking about tax reform and the MSM, and how basically the MSM has waged war against the taxpayer and how they have done so. And one of the ways that they've done this and accomplished this is to hit taxpayers, hit people who are reading the articles with information and then flood out and make noise, distract, and actually not give the taxpayer the information they need to make decisions, to push back against Congress, to make their voice heard. And so it's vital that we get the information we need. It's also vital that we can identify the lies, deceit, and misleading information the MSM is providing. So we are going to go over that. We're going to look at 2 articles tonight. But first, I want to acknowledge the 2 heroes, Stephen Wilford and Johnny. I mean, my heart is just, I'm an all-American girl, and I'm a California girl, born and raised, okay? And these men, they came together in a time of difficulty, and they took action. They went on an 11-mile chase. And if it weren't, policemen can't be everywhere. This is the unfortunate thing, is that no world is going to be perfect which we live in. No amount of training that we provide congregations and churches and even individuals or citizens will protect us against the world which is around us. It just won't. But when we have to reach out, to the police, they aren't always going to be right there. It's important when we're gathered, when we're at home, if we are at church, wherever it might be. It's important we have an action plan of sorts that we can go by. But really, when someone comes out and does these tragic acts, it's going to take bravery, such as the two men who came together to take action. Okay? All American men who just took action. And no amount of necessary training, I mean, it's just not organic. We have to respond as humans and take action as responsible citizens. And police won't always be right there. And this is one of the reasons why I believe, and I mentioned tax reform is important tonight to talk about, because really it's a foundational issue. Gun control is also one of the issues which the MSM is manipulating and helping the agenda, okay? They're helping push an agenda. Guns don't kill people. People kill people, okay? People can kill people with their hands, with trucks. We've seen that. Okay, where there's an evil heart and malice, things will happen. And unfortunately, the world is not necessarily a safe place. So what we have here is an MSM who's endangering us by trying to push an agenda which says if there are no guns, we will be safe. And that's not true. That's a lie. That is a blatant lie. Okay? It's a blatant lie. If there are no guns, who will have the guns? Police officers who may not be around and may take anywhere from 15, 30 minutes, 2 hours to respond, depending on where you live and what has happened. And criminals, the ones who break laws to get weapons, to hurt people, who are self-feeding, to do anything that they need to do to get ahead. They break laws. They aren't going to look at the legislation and say, hey, I'm a felon, I can't own a gun. No, I'm not going to buy a gun. If he or she needs a gun, they will go get a gun at any means. And I'm guessing they're not going to walk up to the counter and buy one. Unfortunately, in the case of the Texas shooter, Apparently the Air Force did not follow through on what they needed to ensure that the proper reporting was done, and this person did not have access to a gun. And again, this person is a criminal, this person breaks laws, lies, and attains a weapon. Legally, illegally, either way, he broke the law. Either way, he is now a murderer. Either way, thank goodness, he's no longer going to do this again. Unfortunately, there has been massive loss of life, and we cannot change that. But we can learn from it. One of the things we need to learn is that the mainstream media needs to be held accountable here. Okay? The mainstream media needs to be held accountable here. I mean, heated topics from today. Okay? From mass shootings to gun control, tax reform to healthcare reform. All are being manipulated by the MSM to undermine Congress, the president, and most importantly, their actions are impacting everyday citizens. Do you get that? Their actions are impacting everyday citizens. The mainstream media, okay, this is important. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of what I'm saying tonight. The mainstream media must be called out and held accountable on every front. We must support conservative media outlets. And I think this is an important thing. This is an important thing. We have to support conservative media outlets, conservative actors, conservative musicians, conservative communicators, conservative talk show people, conservative feed, okay? We want to be fed. We want to be fed truth. We want to be fed good, solid information, which our families can hold on to. It has to come from a source that's trusted. Yes? Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and push pause. I'm going to pull up these two articles, and I want to try to attempt to show you what I am talking about the articles and how MSM lies. Okay? Be right back. The article is from the Washington Post, and I think it's important to, and I'll put it in the link and you can go ahead and read down it. It's important to recognize when the media is lying, okay? The title is Senate GOP Tax Bill Could Delay Corporate Tax Cut and Make Other Major Changes That Break Sharply with House Plan. Ooh. You know where they make their money is the headline, and you click. For tonight's example, click and read down it and learn a little bit. So basically, they go on to explain what that means. And this is written by Damian Paletta and Mike. And basically, okay, it says, Senate Republicans on Tuesday were considering a starkly different approach to overhauling the tax code that their House colleagues weighing a delay in the implementation of a major corporate tax cut and other measures to alter the cost and impact of the plan. Senate leaders were exploring a postponing of the centerpiece of the effort. An $845 billion corp tax cut until 2019, according to 4 people. Ding, 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 ding. 4, not 2, not 1, not according to a source, according to 4 people. They have now graduated to interesting levels. According to 4 people familiar with the draft of the legislation, I wonder if those are on a committee. Now, mind you, okay, this particular piece of tax reform went to the Ways and Means Committee yesterday, yes? So my guess is these 4 people could be on the Ways and Means Committee. I don't know. The move would make it easier to comply with Senate rules than aim to limit any legislation's impact on the debt. At the same time, Republican senators were planning to eliminate the state and local tax deduction going further than the House, which retained a part of the popular tax break, said the people familiar with the matter. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, I cannot say that word. I cannot speak today, but that's okay. Because they were not authorized to discuss sensitive deliberations. Senators also were debating how to ensure future Senators were also debating how to ensure fewer of the plan's benefits flow to the wealthy and more flow to the middle class. No decisions have been made, the people familiar with the negotiations said, but Senate Finance Committee Chairman Orrin Hatch is slated to reveal his proposal Thursday. Hatch said Tuesday that his goal was to make the corporate rate cut immediately, but that it was still being discussed. I hope we can get there, that's for sure, Hatch said. The approach sets up a potential collision with House Republicans in the White House, which was signed legislation by year's end. The House Ways and Means Committee is expected to approve its version of the tax bill Thursday and hold a vote in the full House next week. The House and Senate must pass identical tax bills before President Trump can sign legislation, but Senate Republicans are confronted with much different challenges than their House colleagues. Divide, 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 divide. So rather than just speaking clearly and saying, this is where this is at, that is where that is at, and presenting information, they're creating drama. Okay? They're creating drama. Senate Republicans face acute concerns from some members, including retiring Senate Bob Corker, that the tax plan will add to the debt. The House GOP proposed slashing the corporate tax rate from 35% to 20% beginning in 2018. Nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation estimated that this change would lead to a drop in federal revenue of $108 billion the first year. Altogether, the tax bill is expected to add $1.5 trillion to the debt over a decade. Now, this goes on to explain the 60 votes versus this seat and that seat. And when we go in there and when we look at what they're actually saying, okay, it's fill. It's fill. And one of the things that what we're seeing is we're seeing noise, right? We talked about the noise earlier. This is noise. This is filled with noise. And when I post this on my comments area, look at it, okay? It's noise. If Republicans cannot find a way to limit the budget impact of the tax plan, they may be forced to make it temporary, GOP lawmakers say. Senate Republicans also face different political calculus. House GOP leaders likewise had plans to eliminate the state and local tax deduction, particularly important in well-off cities and suburbs, but they decided to allow people to continue to deduct up to $10,000 property taxes to win support from Republicans in high-tax states such as New York and New Jersey. Senators are less likely to worry about the impact of tax change on metro areas as opposed to the entire state, and no GOP senators hail from New York to New Jersey. Still others in the Senate have raised concern that the tax plan's benefits could disproportionately flow to the wealthy. Senator Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, and Mike Lee are pressing for more benefits for the middle and working classes, which is good. These are the same three that we know are conservatives for the most part, and will push for freedom-based and competition-based reforms. Senate negotiations aren't planning to include a temporary 300 family flexibility credit contained in the House bill. They go on to mention years. Now when we look at all of these articles, okay, about tax, they don't give people proper perspective. Okay, it's almost like it's just more that noise. Yes, it is. And why not give the American public a clear picture? Why? 1, doesn't make money. 2, doesn't create drama, which creates more money, which creates more stories, which creates more money, more divide, which feeds agenda. Yes? Okay, are you getting me here? I hope you're following me. So then we can go down, and I'm going to show you. This article goes on and on and on. Okay? Okay, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And I think it's important to understand most of that is noise. So the short of it is this, of that story is this. The House and the Senate can't agree on reforms. Okay? They need to match them up in order to pass it, in order for President Trump to sign it. Senators and House representatives are elected differently and they cover different areas, which creates a little bit more incentive for one to aim at a particular party over another. Okay? And that's very interesting to discuss. Yeah, sure, they should mention that. But what they don't really elaborate on is, look, we need more money in our pockets. Republicans are trying to cut a deal here. Let's work together. The goal is this. So-and-so senator, so-and-so senator, and so-and-so senator. They're not getting on the right page to be able to accomplish this. Okay? This is why I love C-SPAN and when they do votes, because you can see the Republicans, you can see the Democrats, and you can see who did what and who voted where. And you can just go click, 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 and you can basically contact your representatives. You can start the conversation quickly. You know exactly who to contact, what to contact for. This type of reporting is just noise, 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 and especially when you have sources that are unmentioned. What kind of credence can we give to that? If you're attaining information illegally, information they are not privy to give out about potential policy, you're using weight. They're shifting weight. They're using this as a tool to manipulate, and it's not okay. The second story I want to talk to you about is from Politico, okay? And this is left or leaning, of course. All of these are. But let's take a look at this. They have Ted Cruz right in the spotlight as the picture. The article is titled, "Tax Hike Reports Throw Republicans on Political Defense." Weighted. That title in itself is weighted. House Republicans are on the defensive after a few new analysts in the latest string show some middle-income people would see tax increases under their plan to rewrite the tax code. While most taxpayers, 61%, would see their taxes fall in the next 2 years, almost 1/5 would pay higher taxes by 2027. Are you telling me by 2027 is the concern? That's 10 years from now. Sure, we need this story. Sure, we need the full information. But don't make it like it's next week. Don't make it a tragedy. And if you read the words and you really look at this story, it's written that way. The whole thing. Top to bottom. 46%. That year, which year? 2027 or 2027? It's unclear. Or is it the next 2 years? Okay, 46% that year would get a tax cut. Well, more than 1/3 would see only minimal changes in their tax bills totaling less than $100. So what you're telling me is let's say that we're throwing Republicans on the defensive over $100 in 2027 of maybe not impacting tax very much. All right, let me just get this straight right now. If the reforms that are made, if the adjustments that are made in the end of this year or the beginning of next year are done, passed, and there's a negative impact of sorts, we should have a Congress that goes to bat for us. We should have a Congress that goes to bat and says, you know what, this isn't working, like Obamacare. Obamacare isn't working. We need to fix this. We're not going to argue about the petty things. We know, and we have identified areas which are problematic. We are going to go in there. We are going to do our job as congresspersons, and we are going to change the policy to better reflect what American citizens need. End of story. Okay, there's no argument that Congress can't go back in and change things. This is their job. Do your job. And this is what I would say to reporters. Do your job. Your job is not to tell me some sob story about how some taxpayers, 46% in 2027 may only see $100 change. He bases this entire article on the same type of fluff, emotion, baiting. Okay, this is what this is. It's also noise. Yes, it's not the information we need. The JCT analysts is the second the agency has issued showing some modest income people at risk of tax increases. The Tax Policy Center and other tax experts have come to similar conclusions. That has some Republicans in the Senate pushing for significant changes, such as an even larger and pricier expansion of the child tax credit, popular middle income break, than the one the House Republicans are contemplating. It would require major revisions to the House plan. Some conservatives want to finance expanded middle class tax break, at least in part, by repealing the Affordable Care Act's mandate to buy health insurance. The House and Senate, I think we need to do even more to provide a tax cut, not just tax reform, but tax cut for every American, said Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas. So then, sure, that's great. I was talking about his quote earlier. Now they go down and they say, I have some concerns, okay? Said Senator Joe Manchin. I mean, this guy is something else, who was among several Democrats from states Trump won who met with administration officials on Tuesday. Quote, the bottom line is the president told me specifically that this is not a tax cut for the rich, it's a tax cut for the hardworking middle class. So I'm looking at everything we're seeing. Trump called to the meeting from his trip to Asia. We've made it clear that we think this bill tilts for the rich, end quote, said Senator Sherrod Brown, Democrat of Ohio, who has also attended. Quote, we made it clear that we don't agree with that, end quote. Now, those are important things to say, okay? But then as we read down, it starts diluting again. Now, it's also important to say here and note that they start quoting all of the different representatives, which is important, but it's almost like, have you ever had that family discussion at the dinner table where Aunt Susie and Uncle Mike are kind of just going back and forth? I mean, it's one of those things where you're unclear about, well, is this going to turn out all right? Creates doubt. Yes, and it creates division, and it's pinning different people against one another instead of being productive and constructive. So I went through about 15 different articles, and each one had the same slant. Each one had the same perspective in terms of divide, noise, information that wasn't pertinent, or information that was pertinent but blown well out of proportion. Data that was provided that, well, good, data is good. We should get that information as citizens, but let's put it in context. Okay? Not one of the articles that I read had the bill attached. Not one. And this is a problem, America. You're reading information about people who are reading information for you. Yes, we elect our congressional members to work for us, but they aren't doing their jobs. So we as American citizens should be provided the opportunity to read what they're looking at, what they're deciding on, which supposedly we're supposed to be able to have access to, which we do, but we have to go look it up. But media should be held accountable for their actions, should be held accountable for their reporting. They should be providing the American people the information they need to make the decisions that are important to them and their families. That's what it comes down to, yes? So how do we combat that? We combat that by clicking on that link, taking a look at what I'm talking about, understanding the lies, the misinformation, the disinformation, the manipulation, the truth of the matter, and then writing the editor. Writing the editor and letting them know exactly how you think about the particular article that it was that you clicked on and you read. And the writer and how they're manipulating facts, whatever it is that they're doing, which is not right. They're not including source information. You want to know as a reader, you want to know as a citizen, and you are saying, do your job. The other thing that you can do as a citizen is reach out to Congress, which I give you the phone number to Congress every time, and I have to read it. It's 202-224-3121, 202-224-3121. So please go ahead and get a hold of your congressional member. Let them know what you think on the different policies. Let them know that you want them working for you. You need to see a tax reduction. You need to see action. Yes? Thank you again for joining me on tonight's Political Core, the Erin Cruz Show. Please join me on Thursday night at 7 p.m. for the Queen of Politics, and also on Friday night at 8 p.m. on my YouTube channel for Straight Talk with Erin. Thank you again so much. God bless you, and God bless America.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about Political Core and the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's erincruz.com. Thank you for joining us, and see you at the same time and the same place next week.